Hello and welcome to the Cost-Benefit Analysis Group 1 Lab 5 presentation. Problem 1 looks into the relationship between changes in social surplus and a toll increase on a portion of highway. Specifically, the toll increases from 40 cents to 50 cents, and highway usage drops from 50,000 to 45,000 drivers per week. Also, it is assumed that the supply curve is horizontal. In this scenario, government surplus increases because of higher revenues, while consumer surplus decreases because of greater toll rates. Some of the consumer surplus is not transferred, which results in deadweight loss shown in the red triangle. The area of the triangle represents the change in social surplus, which is $250. Problem 2 focuses on using demand and supply curves to determine the effects of an import fee on oil. It discusses a situation where a country imports 3 billion barrels of crude oil and produces another 3 billion barrels domestically every year. The world price is set at $90 per barrel, and the price elasticity of domestic supply is 0.25, while the price elasticity of domestic demand is 0.1 at the current equilibrium. Slope of the domestic supply curve was found by inverting elasticity times quantity divided by price. Slope of the demand curve was found via the same method. The p-intercept was found by plugging known price and quantity values into the respective equations in the form P equals NQ plus C. Part A considers the changes resulting from a $30 import fee and a $30 price increase in domestic oil. The assumption here is that only consumers, producers, and taxpayers have standing, and that the government pays a $250 million administrative cost. The domestic supply curve follows the function P equals 0.0000012 times Q minus 270, and the demand curve follows the function P equals a negative 0.0000003 Q plus 990. With the prices set at $120, the market demands 2.9 billion barrels of oil from each of the domestic and international suppliers, totaling 6.8 billion barrels in demand. The quantity of domestic oil supplied follows the domestic supply curve to 3.25 billion barrels, and the import supply curve shifts upward to match the price of $120, and a subsequent quantity of 2.93 billion barrels occurs. Overall, the net social benefits can be represented with the change in social surplus, which is summarized with the domestic deadweight loss in the upper white triangle, the import deadweight loss in the blue triangle, and the administrative costs, totaling a negative $7 billion. Part B considers a marginal excess tax burden, or METB, of 0.25, and it is assumed that 20% of producer surplus goes to the government as tax revenue. The producer surplus, shown in red, is $88.5 billion. 20% of it goes to the government, and that value is multiplied by 1 plus METB to get $22.13 billion. However, there is also a tax burden of METB times tax revenue, which equals $4.43 billion. The overall social benefits can be calculated by adding benefits from tax, subtracting costs from tax, domestic deadweight loss, import deadweight loss, and the administrative costs, which totals $10.7 billion. Part C repeats Part A and B under slightly different circumstances. World prices dropped to $80 and continue to face a $30 import fee, while domestic prices rise to $110. Using the same curves from Part A, the shift from $90 to $110 causes demand to be 2.93 billion barrels in both the domestic and import markets, totaling 5.87 billion barrels. The quantity of domestic oil supplied follows the domestic supply curve to 3.17 billion barrels, and the import supply curve shifts upward to the price of $110. Overall, the net social benefits can be summarized with the domestic deadweight loss in the upper white triangle, the import deadweight loss in the blue triangle, and the administrative costs, totaling a negative $3.25 billion. In the final step, the producer surplus, shown in red, is equal to $59.3 billion. 20% of it, multiplied by 1 plus METB, is equal to $14.83 billion. The METB times tax revenue equals $2.97 billion. Yet again, social benefits can be calculated by adding benefits from tax, subtracting costs from tax, domestic deadweight loss, import deadweight loss, and the administrative costs, which totals $8.61 billion. And that concludes the presentation for Lab 5. Thanks for tuning in.